Hello and welcome to the Ink Spot, the show where we talk about books. I'm your host, Stanley G. Robertson. Today on the show, we're going to be discussing the book entitled, Should Juveniles Be Tried as Adults? The book is part of the At Issue series on crime. Today on the show, I'm joined by my guest, Lewis Powell III. Welcome to the program, Lewis.
Thanks for the opportunity, Stan. Appreciate it.
Kim Martinez, a.k.a. Chemistry. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Gavin Jackson, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Lewis, what do you think of Should Juveniles Be Tried as Adults?
Under limited circumstances.
All right, Kim?
I think it was good. It was interesting points made.
Gavin?
There were good arguments on both sides, so it got you thinking.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. I think the book was it was very balanced, and it did present arguments both ways. As a matter of fact, it presented arguments so well that I would not be surprised if you were not able to determine whether juveniles should or should not be tried as adults. Kim, what do you think?
Did not change my opinion on what I felt.
And what does that prove?
I don't think a juvenile should be tried as an adult. If they're under 16 or under, I don't think they are, regardless of what crime they committed. I don't think so.
Lewis, what do you think?
Well, I agree with her on that in terms of under 16, but 17, under 18 in limited circumstances.
Okay, and you think you agree with this?
I think 16 or younger, they should not be tried
What's
as
your
adults,
opinion,
regardless
Gavin?
of what the crime.
I mean, if you're saying 16 or younger, but that's not the argument. The argument is 18 or younger, and that's the difficulty. 17 and a half goes out and intentionally kills somebody in a gruesome way. You know, it becomes a tough question, but, you know, if you're not old enough.
So what do you think? Should juveniles be tried as adults or not?
I would say not.
You say no. All right. Now, what do you make of this idea that that Lewis espouses that if the person is 16 or over, is that correct?
Well, actually, it was
16
16 or younger.
16 or younger, they should not be. What do you think? You buy that?
I mean, yeah, 16 or younger, I mean, you're a child. There's so many
about
impulsive things
17?
that you do. I think 17 is fuzzy. I really had to think about it. 17, I know you're like, what's the difference between 16 and 17, but you're getting to a point where you're legally responsible for yourself. And there are some situations, I mean, that maybe it should be taken case by case. Because if you're going to throw a huge blanket on, they're under 18, they shouldn't be tried as an adult.
I think they all should be taken case by case, because I think if the person is, say, like the 14-year-old that was playing with the little girl, his neighbor or whatever, he was playing wrestling moves with her,
Yeah,
and he's in jail for that, that's crazy. No way.
Yeah, in that situation, there was a kid. He was playing with this little girl. I think it was a neighbor. He had been watching wrestling on TV,
Right.
and he saw this wrestling move. He put this move on this kid, his
Right.
friend, which was younger than him,
Right.
and the girl dies. The kid ends up going to jail, tried as an adult, and actually, I think he went to jail for life.
They gave him life for it. I think that's totally ridiculous. First of all, a lot of things took place in that they should have considered. Where were the parents at? Why did your 14-year-old child have a 6-year-old playmate? They weren't related. They were neighbors. So why do they have a playmate? I think so many factors should have been considered in that. Not to mention that's something he wasn't trying to do. He was emulating or trying to do a wrestling move that he saw on TV. I see my son do stuff like that.
Why do you think the sentence was so stiff?
I think because he was black.
What do you think?
I think he was black.
That was a clear-cut, just ridiculous case.
Yeah.
This is a child doing childish things.
Exactly.
And it was a mistake. There was no intent. He didn't grab a weapon.
Exactly.
He was playing, and, you know, an accident happened.
Yeah.
I want to get back to this issue that you guys say in terms of this age cutoff. 'Cause it seems to be that that's the issue, really. It's not whether the kid should be tried as an adult or juvenile, because apparently in some cases you guys believe that they should be tried as an adult. Is that right?
That's right.
In some cases.
It's in limited circumstances.
And are those circumstances based on age?
Age and intent, malice, because an example that Kim was talking about, that was ridiculous. That could have happened to anybody. He didn't intend to kill that girl. It was no malice in his heart. It was no intent. He was playing. That was a clear accident. So that's what I'm saying. Limited circumstances depending upon the act.
What
and
about
age.
these circumstances? The kid is 18 years old. In the book, they talked about this one particular kid who, now I think this kid was 17, but for my example, I'm going to say 18. In this one instance, let's say the kid is 18 years old, and this kid actually knows that he's going to kill, the kid was 17. The kid was 17. Let's stick with that because that works great for my example, as a matter of fact. So the kid is 17 years old. He commits this murder, and he knows that he's going to kill the person. And the kid actually said to the authorities, I killed her because I knew that I couldn't get the death penalty because of my age. Now, that's a true case that actually happened. What about that? Kid is 17. He knows what he's doing. Should he get the?
Under
should
that
he be tried as an
scenario,
adult?
Stan, I have to say that young man deserves to be tried as an adult because he thought about it, he formed the intent, he obviously had malice in his
the
heart.
court made a mistake. What do you think?
I still would say we need to look into how a child is raised, what their background is, because a lot of people act out, even adults, they act out from things that are happening to them in their childhood. So if he's acting out, maybe he's acting out because of some way he was trained. People do, just like people train their kids to be racist, train their kids to be drug dealers, they train their kids to be killers.
So you're saying they should consider the kids'
I think they should,
motive, they
yeah.
should consider the kids' background?
Yeah, and one of the things that I noticed that when you start hearing stories about serial killers, especially white ones, now that we have black ones, when you start hearing about serial killers or whatever, they always look at how were they raised. Even any killer, anytime a white person do something, the first thing they check in is their background to see that they have a father in their home. They never do that with black people. They never do that with brown kids because they're only concerned, and you can best believe when they look into their household to see was a father there, they give them empathy and say, okay, you know what, well, his father wasn't there, and they give him a lighter sentence with their white.
So you are actually saying that if the kid, and let's assume we're talking about a black kid, because that's your premise is that
Right.
blacks and whites are going to be
Yes.
treated different. So let's say we're talking about a black kid. If that kid commits a murder or some heinous crime where he should or deserves to be tried as an adult according to the criminal justice system. So they want to try him as an adult. You're saying that if the father was in the home, that should make a difference as to whether he's tried as an adult.
No, I'm saying that I know that
That's
the
what
court.
you just said.
No, I'm saying the court looks at that when it's a white kid. They look at all those things.
Are
Those
you
are the
saying that they
questions that
should
they
or
ask.
should not look at that?
I'm saying for white kids, they look at whether father's in the home.
But we're talking about for
black kids, they don't.
We've
So-
established that there's going to be a difference between black and white kids. You established that, and we said, okay, we agree with that.
Okay, we said that. Okay. You all agree with me that there's a difference in the justice system between black and
We're
white
not
kids.
necessarily saying that there is a difference.
Look, I think
for the sake of this
I
conversation.
think that first you should just draw the line and assume the child is too immature to be tried as an adult,
Yep.
like you do with everything else. When you're
Everything else.
17 years old,
Smoking,
you
military,
can't buy a
everything.
home, you can't sign a contract.
Exactly.
You know, you can't get medical help without your parents' consent. It's just assumed
Exactly.
that you are too immature to do all
Under
those
18.
things. Under
Under
18.
18.
So I think they should have the same presumption
Exactly.
in the criminal court.
Yes.
That it's just, it's
Yeah.
presumed. Now, if the prosecutor wants to bring in evidence to say, all right, normally this person is presumed to be too immature, here's what I have
What if
why
a
they
kid
are
is
mature.
18 years old plus a day?
He's presumed to be competent. I mean, across the board.
In some-
18 olds
in
plus a
some
day, he can go
instances-
in, buy a pack of Marlboros.
In some instances,
he can
people
go
are-
buy a house. He can.
In some instances, people are considered the age of majority is actually 21, not 18. What about that?
Well, and that's something else I think we need to change. We need to make up our mind because I remember when my sister wanted to get married at 17, my mom had to sign for her to get married at 17. And that was years ago. So when she had to sign for it. So why is it that, like, say, for instance, R. Kelly did something wrong with this young girl because she was so young and she couldn't think for herself. But had she gone out and killed somebody, we would have tried as an adult because she knew better. But to have sex, you don't know better. To get married, you don't know better. To go to the military, you're not old enough. But, because you're so mature and you're not thinking clearly and all of this stuff. We need to make up our mind what these rules are, and we need to make them fair for everyone. Our justice system is not fair, and we know it's not fair.
Wait a minute. So you're saying that when it comes to sex, 'cause you mentioned R. Kelly, you think that when you're talking about sex, you're talking about statutory rape, right?
Right.
Obviously, it's a crime.
And marriage also.
At 17
Marriage
years
also.
old, you are presumed to not have the maturity
Yeah.
to decide to have sex with a 30-year-old.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. 18
Exactly.
and a day, you are presumed
Right,
to
to
have the intellectual capacity
and your
to make
point
that
is
decision.
that we should change
I
that?
think it should be changed. We should make it, if you whatever age you are, we'll say 21. Actually, I think 21 is a good age to say, okay, that person is an adult. They should know better by now by 21. I think 21 should be a cutoff. To say everything else you should take